We are starting out with part 2, adding in some riser hacks to this tray hack video. I wanted to get out a little pile of my precious junk and show you all what I like to do by auditioning these pieces together to see how they're going to look in proportion. It is so much fun, so I encourage you to get you out a little pile of your junk, some of your favorite things, and just put them together to see how they look. You can definitely use your imagination with this process and have a lot of fun. This first project coming up is one of my favorite. I think you guys are going to love it. I found this little terrarium for $3 while I was out thrifting. It has sort of a copper look to it, and I knew this would be gorgeous if we put it on top of something to make it look even more grand than it already does. So I picked the piece that I showed you previously. It has like an ornate look, already been painted, but we're going to change that up because we want to go with the copper around that terrarium. So I picked this carriage house by Fusion. It's a beautiful muted green color, and I thought this would go great with that copper. So we're going to give this probably just one coat, I think is all this took, to cover up the other paint, which was gorgeous, but did not go with what my vision was for this piece. When I went to take the stickers off the bottom of this, I'm going to show you all, this is from Anthropologie. Wow. I mean, their stuff is usually very expensive. I think it said $16 maybe, but that's cool. It's always nice when you thrift something from higher end places or more popular places. So I just remove the stickers from the bottom, those little black fuzzy pieces, and we're gonna glue this to the base using a little bit of hot glue for that immediate hold. Now I did decide to go ahead and use my crazy glue or super glue with the instant activator for this piece because I knew that would also help this stay together permanently. I do have this linked in my description box below. You can get it off of Amazon. Once I put that super glue on there and got it straight, then I just took that spray activator and sprayed all around it where the glue was at. I just wiped off the excess. It doesn't bother your paint or anything like that. Now I thought to tie this in, we would take some DIY Pennies from Heaven. You can use any kind of copper wax, rub and buff copper look. You can use copper metallic paint from Walmart, anything you want, but this is what I had, and I'm going to put this all over those little motifs and edges on the bottom of my piece. Also, I wanted this one because it's kind of sheer and I didn't want the copper real thick, just kind of a hint on here. Here is how our piece is looking, and I wanted to share that I actually am going to make this a little terrarium. So what I've done is I got out my Dollar Tree rocks and just poured some in the bottom of it. What's funny is I had bought like 5 extra plants over the weekend when my husband and I went out at Home Depot, and I ran into my sunroom and grabbed one of them. I hadn't potted them into something else, so I'm showing you a couple that I was thinking about using. And I went ahead and grabbed this one because it wasn't as tall. Now these are succulents and they don't need a lot of dirt. Actually in most plants you can just put in water and they'll grow slower. So I'm taking most of the dirt off. Then I'm going to moisten the roots and stick them down into the rocks in the center. I'm going to go ahead and add a few little mushrooms and a few little tiny faux flowers just kind of peeking out from underneath of them, and that's all. You could add a bird, you could add so many different things, but I thought I would show you all a shot from the side of how I'm adding these pieces just to give you some ideas. You definitely could use this piece to put other things in, not just a actual plant. You could use this to display one of your favorite porcelain dolls. You could use this to display little rocks. You could use this to display maybe things like pins or buttons, pour it kind of full, or just any kind of little thing that you want to display. This would be a great piece. You all have to let me know what you think about this one. This is one of my very favorite in this series. Our next project is going to be a tray, and we're going to use it to frame out some artwork. I hope you enjoy the concept of this one and it gives you some ideas to use on your own. I love the shape of this tray. It has sort of an octagon shape, and I only paid $1.50 for it. As you can see here, it's very old and it looks like someone tried to clean half of it if you look at the bottom compared to the top. So I picked this up with the other trays that I got around $1.50 and $2, and I had a great idea when I was going through some of my vintage artwork. We're going to give this a full coverage coat of an off-white or just a creamy color. This is Champlain Infusion. You use whatever paint you have. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I just kind of get around those edges, not getting up too far. And if we do, we'll be covering that with some other color of paint coming up. For the edge of this, we are going to use another green, Conservatory by Fusion. I love this color as well. To go around these edges, and I'm not doing this perfect, I'm going to try to stay in the lines, but we're going to use that same technique I love to with the gold rub and buff to bring these two paints together. To do that, I'm just going to use this rub and buff in the antique gold. We're trying to go for a more cottage look on this one. That's kind of why I use the green as well. More natural, neutral colors. I would say in the more traditional look, a lot of people do the whole greeny chic sort of cottage look, and we'll talk about that more later on in the video. Now I'm just going around those edges like we talked about with that gold rub and buff. Then I'm going to go around all the actual edges of the tray, highlighting all those beautiful curves and outlines to make this look like it came that way. Once we get that done, oh my goodness, you all. So I was looking through my sort of what I feel like is either can be vintage, Victorian, cottage, English cottage, French cottage, and I found this piece of artwork that is going to fit perfect in here. It is also sort of octagon shape. I paid 99 cents for this, and my original, okay, so I love the artwork, but my original thought was to replace it because it is warped. The artwork that's in it's warped, but I love it. So I thought, you know what? So what? It's old, it's vintage. That's the point. I buy secondhand. I love to remake vintage. I love this piece of artwork, so I'm going to keep it. Don't second guess yourself when it comes to stuff like that. If you see a piece that's warped or, you know, has something broken, you can always play it up and make it look better in some way, so I decided to do that. Now we're adding some of that gold rub and buff, just a little, not a lot, to this to brighten it up, leave some of the natural vintage gold. Once we do that, we're going to add this with some E6000 and some hot glue in the center of this tray to be the focal point. Then we're going to add a piece of brass to the top. You guys know I love to do that. I've also gotten a lot of this brass from thrift stores. Used to be, it would be on older furniture like the 80s, 90s, maybe even older. And I'm going to do the same thing, just add a little bit of that gold, not completely cover the old, keeping some of the antique gold so that this piece will still look vintage. And I love how this piece turns out. I'm probably going to keep this in my home decor for a little while just so I can enjoy it and then put it in my vendor booth maybe later on. We'll see. I want to take this time to say hello to everyone. If you're new here, welcome. I have enjoyed getting to know all of the new subscribers who've been commenting. You guys are just amazing. The comments you leave are just in awe. Even my subscribers who've been here from the beginning, you guys, we talk every week. I enjoy it so very much. So again, thank you, thank you. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button or hit that little button with my face on it at the end of this video. It will automatically subscribe you. Hit that thumbs up and of course leave me a comment. Project 3 and 4, sorry, I cannot talk, 4 go together, and you know how in episode 1 of the tray hacks I showed you all those gorgeous little dishes. We're going to go through those right now and kind of look at some of them. These are just ones I've collected here and there. I've had people ask me what to do with them, so we're going to use a couple of these in today's video. Now this falls under a few different categories. I think personally, and as I've seen on other decor upcycle pages on Pinterest, these can fall under cottage core, cottage. These can fall under granny chic or shabby chic. I think French country for sure. So, you know, Victorian, I think these are in multiple categories, but we're going to use them under cottage of the guise of granny chic. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do with these. So I had a little fun with these, of course, playing around, seeing what would look good together, what bases, what colors I'm going to use out of the florals to paint the bases, because none of these bases really matched, or I didn't like the colors, or they were just, you know, factory paint. So I like to get out my little book that I have put swatches in of paint, which this is so fun and relaxing. Find a little book or little wood pieces you like to do swatches with. I like to have mine all on the same page so I can compare them. So I pulled out my book and just compared my plates or bowls to the colors that's in my book. When you first open it, you can see, well, I thrifted that for $2, but all my waxes are right there at the top so that I can compare them to each other. And then, of course, I've got all my greens on one page with some have a little hint of blue, but they're still considered greens. Sometimes I might put the same color in the green page as I do the blue page. You can see I don't have a ton of blues. Blue's not one of my favorite colors. And then odd colors that I don't have that many, of course, they're all on the same page. So now you can see I'm just having a little fun here, deciding what color I want to go with what piece. And I'm going to paint the bases on these first. These are some of the easier upcycles, especially if you only have to paint just the bases and you leave the bowls just as they are. You know, painting does take an extra step, plus I love doing it, so it doesn't bother me. You could actually, especially with this white one, you could just use the base as it is and then glue two pieces together. I do very simple upcycles sometimes, but rarely, to be honest. Okay, so we're going to do 2 coats of each of these paints, let those dry, and if they need to be sealed, if it's a chalk paint or a clay paint, then I will seal them with some type of sealer. Let those dry, and you'll see here I did wipe off some of that because we don't want any paint on that. That's where we're going to need our glue to seal between the bowl and the top of this glass piece. If you are trying to make cute little things to put in your own art studio or craft studio, this is a great way to make risers to hold little buttons and little beads. Also, these are the cutest little gifts, and the best part is they're handmade. To finish these off, we're going to make sure that we use a really good glue that's long-term hold, meant for glass or porcelains to stick to glass or porcelain. E6000 is a great option. Also, I think the Dollar Tree Fix-All glue would be an option, something like JB Weld. And I'm going to use a short-term hold glue such as hot glue to keep this in place while the E6000 is drying. And then this finishes these pieces off. I love this type of project. I think it's a lot of fun, and this type of project is just adorable. Let me know what you guys think about these risers. Now, if you like bright colors, stay until the end. I've got a little bright color project for you bright color lovers. Our next project is going to continue on with how to use these plates and bowls. It's going to be a pretty easy, pretty simple one, kind of like these were, not too much work involved. So with project number 5, we're going to use another one of those $1.50 trays and use one of the beautiful plates as a highlight or as a focal piece in the center, kind of like we did with that vintage art. Now, to get these two bonded together, we're going to use the same glue process with the E6000, some hot glue, and I'm going to go ahead and glue this right in the center before I paint this. I will paint up to the inner part of the plate because there will be a gap. I just didn't want to risk painting where my glue needed to bond. So I went ahead and got that out of the way, and I wanted to play off of the beautiful peach in this. So I'm using Sunset Pink by Folk Art. This is a chalk paint. We're going to go ahead and give this 2 good coats and then seal it. I love the colors in this, you all, and I love how this tray has a beautiful wave to it and those gorgeous little scallops. We're going to play off of those. Now that we have this dry, we have done the 2 coats, I'm just going to add some clear DIY wax to this, rub that back a little bit, and start showcasing those little motifs. And we're going to go ahead and transfer some of that gold rub and buff that we're using on those motifs to the center, or not, I'm sorry, this edge of that plate. Now it has a gold trim, but the gold is so bright, it's almost a silvery look, and we want it to blend in with our gold rub and buff. I'm gonna just kind of wipe back as I see fit to smooth that in. After looking at this on video, I almost wish I would have used the autumn gold rub and buff, which is more of a coral. I'm not sure if it would have blended in too much, but I do like the gold. Possibly the more coral would have looked better. You guys can let me know in the comments. We're going to add a hanger, just like I said before, with that a flat hanger and some E6000 at the back of this, so this can be a beautiful piece of wall art. Of course, someone can sit this in a photo frame holder. Let me know what you think of this one. Our last project, we are going to have some fun and get messy. So get ready for some painting. Now I'm taking this little $2 tray. This came originally from the Target Dollar Spot. The first thing we're going to do is take these handles off here. I'm just going to cut these off. And I noticed there is some type of spill on here. It looks like it's, I was hoping it wasn't oil or I had oils in it. So I thought if I went ahead and sealed this with something like Mod Podge or clear polygloss that it wouldn't leak through. Well, it does, but you'll see once we work on this, it's not going to be that noticeable. Now, if you take something like this outside and spray it with a shellac, generally that would keep the oil or bleed through from coming through your paints. I need to go ahead and paint over this flag in a white or just some kind of neutral light color, because I have in mind a specific napkin for this, and I absolutely love this napkin. It is one of my favorite that I have in my stash. I got it from eBay. Everybody will probably be asking, well, not everybody, but some people will ask. So once this white dries, we're going to go ahead and use some Mod Podge to apply our napkin with. Isn't this napkin beautiful? This is Frida Kahlo. She is a Spanish artist. Of course, she's not living anymore, but you can look up her artwork. She painted a lot of self-portraits. I'm just removing the backing off this napkin. We want to make sure we remove all the plies. Generally, they're anywhere from 2 to 3. So you're not going to see any white behind your napkin once you remove the backing. Because this tray is more of a rectangle shape, what we're going to do is we're going to extend the napkin over into part of the other bust of Frida. And I'm using just water and a paintbrush to kind of tear this apart. You're not going to notice it that much once we put it down on the tray and piece it together. So once I get that tore apart and get some extra off to fill in the tray, we're going to use that Mod Podge, put a pretty good coat. Now I'm just doing wet on wet method. You can definitely do the iron on method with Mod Podge or just decoupage. You can definitely look that up on YouTube, and I've done that on here before. So I'm just getting this generously wet, but not crazy wet, because napkins tend to wrinkle a lot if you put way too much, which this one did wrinkle, but it doesn't bother me. You guys know, again, this is handmade. We're gonna put down that extra piece to start out with and then add our extended piece on there. Now our edges are gonna get covered up. You're not gonna notice them that much either. I'm just gonna take a piece of plastic in my hand and smooth this down really well. I think I might take my Mod Podge roller and roll over it too. The biggest thing is not get it stuck to anything and rip or pull your napkin back off. Once I get this good and smooth, I go ahead and put Mod Podge directly over it. Now, to decrease the wrinkles, you can wait and let this layer dry, but I knew if my wrinkles got too bad, I'm going to iron back over this, and I do, and I'll tell you about that shortly. But I'm going to go ahead and add a good layer of the Mod Podge on top of this and let that dry. Once it dries, I'll take my parchment paper, lay on top my mini iron, and iron a lot of those wrinkles out, and it definitely helps with those. So I looked at the colors in this napkin and thought, I don't decorate with bright, but I like to do bright projects for viewers and just to have a variety in my booth. Plus I like artistic looking things which have a lot of bright colors. So I grabbed my Kissing booth, my Bohemian Blue, and my Salty Kiss by DIY, Debbie's Design Diary paint. Most of these are super thick because they're old. You can see I don't use these colors very much, and the clay is just so thick. So I need to add some more water and stir them up, as I have been doing, but like I said, where I don't use them that much, they're just real thick. Because this tray is quite haggard or tattered, I do end up adding some salt wash to these colors. Yeah, I'm showing you it here. Now, you guys know I'll just dump it out and kind of mix it in with the paint. You can mix this half paint, half salt wash together. A lot of people will take this and just put it right on top of their projects, leave it very gritty. Use it however you want and what works best for you. So I started using a sponge added to my brushes to help kind of pounce this and blend it in, and just do it until I got it how it looked. And I always encourage you guys to do that. It really is, there's no wrong way. Honestly, it's just however you want to use it. So I'm using my lid as my palettes, putting my salt wash in there, kind of mixing them, adding a little water, and back to mixing that blue and green together. We're going to mix that blue and green all the way around the tray before we add the pink to it. As I started getting this green on here, I kept referring back to the napkin and noticed there was some yellowy greens in there. So here in a little bit, I grab my Fancy Farm Girl, add that sort of yellowy green. You can see there it definitely blends those colors. And once I do the Kissing booth, it's quite pink, so I grab some of the Carnival Red from DIY and mix red and the pink just to get these colors. I added this green and blue all the way around. I didn't show completely on camera. And once I got those dry, then I'll show you how I take that red and pink to keep it from turning my green into, well, my green and my blue into mud. Now you'll see right here, that water, that spot, see it's coming through my paint. This paint is dry, but I don't think I've sealed it yet. You have to seal the DIY paint to get it a brighter color or back to its original color. So what I'm doing is just going on the very top with that hot pink, again using my mister as I need to, because this paint is so thick, it's just not blending very well. And then I grab Marquee, not Carnival Red, and just mix those two together all along the edge and then on the complete outside of the tray. And I thought that we would do some drippy technique on here, so I just kind of let it go down a little bit over that side and just start using my mister bottle to spray it to get it to drip down some. And I just do that over and over until I get it the way that I want, making sure that I dab up some of that extra water going on to my napkin. It doesn't affect the napkin because it has that Mod Podge, so it doesn't really cause an issue down there. If you want to do this before you put your napkin, you can definitely do that, but I feel like the paint blended in real well with that napkin. Now, like I said, brights like this used to be my colors. I used to love to have bright all throughout my home, and I'm not saying I won't change again. Where I have an eclectic style, I feel like that definitely evolves over time because I just get bored. But I loved and enjoyed doing this. I'll put this in my booth. Somebody loves to collect Frida Kahlo things and they'll probably purchase it. Now, once we get this done on the outside and the edges, what I have in mind for the handles is just some pinstriped fabric that I found in my stash. I didn't feel like the twine fit this style, and I didn't really have anything else I could think of that would fit this style. But if you guys have a suggestion, I would gladly hear it because I might have your suggestion in my stash. So I had this pinstripe red and white, sort of like cotton fabric, and I just tore it, cut it down, and did the knots the same way that the twine was tied. I did a couple double knots to make sure that it wouldn't come out, and I thought that the pinstripe looked really cute. Now it looks like I did miss a step here showing you all I used some gold rub and buff, and put it around the edges, and then even around the inner edge of that napkin like we did the other trays. I'm interested to hear what you all think about this one. If you have any suggestions about this, you guys know I love to hear them in the comments below. If you stayed until the end, leave me an F or the name Frida in the comments below. Hit my little face on the screen when it pops up in a few seconds, and you will automatically be subscribed to this channel, and I will see you in the next video.